Tonight we step quietly into ancient Sumer, around the late 4th and 3rd millennium BC, when the first cities rise from the river mud, in the British Museum, in the University of Pennsylvania Museum, and in the collections studied by scholars from Oxford and Yale. Small clay tablets still hold the marks of reed styluses. They are not glamorous objects. They do not glitter. They sit in cases like dried fragments of earth. Yet they preserve something strangely intimate. They preserve the belief that dreams were never merely dreams. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and as the room grows softer around you, right where you're watching from, and what local time it is there. Somewhere, perhaps. It is raining against a window. Somewhere else. The night is warm. You let your mind drift towards southern Mesopotamia, where the land is flat, wet, bright, and severe. The rivers move slowly through reeds and silt. Date palms lean over canals. Mud brick walls catch the heat all day, then breathe it back into the evening. The sky seems too wide for human comfort. It presses down with stars. You're not entering a world of silent ruins. You're entering a world of voices, trade, temple bells, bleating animals, grinding stones, and sandals scraping over packed earth. Smoke rises from cooking fires, beer ferments in clay jars. Wet reeds smell green and sharp beside the water. Somewhere nearby, a scribe sits with damp clay across his knees. He does not write for beauty. He writes because the city needs memory. Grain must be counted. Workers must be listed. Offerings must be recorded. Debts must not vanish into convenient forgetfulness. Human beings, being human beings, already need receipts. And yet, among the numbers and names, there are strange records too. There are references to omens, gods, signs, sickness, ritual, and dreams. Modern Assyriologists have shown that Mesopotamian cultures developed detailed systems for interpreting signs in the world. A sheep liver, a storm, an eclipse, a strange birth, or a dream could all become part of a pattern. To them, reality was not mute. The world spoke constantly, though not always kindly. That is the first quiet fact you carry with you. In ancient Mesopotamia, dreams could be treated as meaningful messages within a wider culture of divination. This is supported by thousands of cuneiform texts studied in major museum and university collections. The Sumerians and their successors did not imagine the mind as a sealed private room. They imagined it as a threshold. A threshold is never entirely safe. As night falls over the city, the sounds begin to change. The marketplace empties. The last donkeys are tied near walls. A child is called indoors. A woman pours water from a jar, and the splash sounds louder in the dark. The smell of sesame oil hangs in a house where a lamp is being trimmed. You lie on a woven mat, or perhaps on a low bed of reeds. The roof above you is made of beams and packed clay. The room is close, warm, and faintly dusty. Outside, insects tremble in the river grass. Inside, breathing slows. Sleep approaches like a visitor. For the people of Sumer, this visitor did not always come alone. A dream might carry the touch of a god. It might bring a warning from the dead. It might expose a danger that the waking eye had missed. It might also confuse, frighten, or deceive the dreamer. That uncertainty mattered, because if a dream could be a message, then ignoring it could be dangerous. If it was a warning, then sleep had a purpose beyond rest. It became an early alarm, sent in darkness before daylight revealed the trouble too late. Here is the strange doorway of this story. The Sumerians helped create writing, cities, temple economies, and some of the oldest recorded literature known to history. They also left traces of a belief that the sleeping mind might receive knowledge from outside itself. Not random images, not meaningless shadows. Something directed, something aimed. Perhaps, of course, scholars remain careful. They debate how much later Akkadian and Babylonian dream traditions preserve older Sumerian beliefs. Some texts come from later periods, written in languages and settings that inherited Sumerian religious ideas. The evidence is real, but it is layered, like mud brick rebuilt on older mud brick. Each age stands upon another. That makes the mystery more interesting, not less. You can picture an excavator lifting a tablet from the soil at Nippur, or another ancient site. The tablet is small enough to hold in one hand. It has slept longer than any king. Its edges are chipped. Its surface is crowded with wedge-shaped signs pressed by someone whose name may be gone forever. They did not know you would one day wonder about their dreams. A quirky little detail survives in the wider Mesopotamian world. Some dream omens could sound almost absurd to modern ears. A dream of eating certain foods, seeing unusual animals, or encountering odd household objects might be interpreted as a sign of future gain, loss, illness, or favour. Ancient dream logic did not always behave politely. It could turn a fish, a door, or a dirty garment into a cosmic notification. Modern people do something similar, though with better mattresses and worse attention spans. You dream your teeth fall out, then spend breakfast wondering whether your subconscious has become a tiny dramatic poet. The Sumerian approach was not exactly modern psychology, but the impulse feels familiar. A dream disturbs you. You want it to mean something. In Sumer, meaning belonged to a universe filled with divine order. The gods were not distant decorations. They governed cities, harvests, storms, kingship, fertility, illness, and death. Humans lived beneath that order, serving it, feeding it with ritual, and fearing its displeasure. The temple was not just a place of worship, it was a centre of labour, storage, authority, and cosmic management. So, if dreams came from beyond the ordinary self, they fit naturally into that world. They were not entertainment. They were not private nonsense. They could be part of the same system that made the river flood, the barley grow, and the king tremble before an omen. You feel the night deepen. In the distance, a dog barks once, then stops. A reed screen moves gently in a doorway. Moonlight rests on a courtyard floor. Someone nearby murmurs a prayer before sleep. They are not asking for inspiration or personal growth. They are asking not to be harmed. They are asking to wake with their body whole, their family safe, their future still open. This is where the ancient idea becomes quietly unsettling. Dreams may have been understood as a warning system, but warning systems exist because danger exists. A peaceful world does not need omens. A perfectly clear universe does not need symbols. The dream arrives because something is hidden, and hidden things have power. You begin to sense why these old texts still matter. They show a civilization trying to read the dark. They reveal people who built cities and accounts, canals and temples, yet still believed that the most important message might arrive when the eyes were closed. They measured grain by daylight. They measured fate by night. The clay tablets do not give one simple answer. They never do. Instead, they offer fragments. A god appears. A sleeper receives instruction. A sign is interpreted. A ritual is performed. A king grows cautious. A priest listens carefully. A warning travels from the invisible into the visible world. In that movement, the original purpose of dreams begins to emerge, not as a final truth, not as a neat explanation, more like a shape beneath water. The dream may have existed to interrupt human certainty. It may have reminded people that they did not command the whole world. It may have carried advice, fear, judgment, or mercy from powers they could not touch. And as you lie there in the imagined warmth of Sumer, with dust in the air and stars over the roof, you understand the first hidden lesson. To dream was not only to sleep. To dream was to become available. Available to warning, available to memory, available to the gods. The night is calm, but it is not empty. Beneath the quiet breathing of the house, beneath the slow river and the cooling walls, an ancient question opens its eyes. When the mind leaves the waking world, who or what is waiting to speak? Your mind drifts deeper into the city. where the houses gather close like sleeping animals. Narrow lanes turn between mud brick walls. The air holds the smell of river damp, warm straw, old plaster, and oil smoke. Above the flat roofs, stars spread across the black sky with a brightness modern eyes almost never see. Somewhere a temple rises. It does not rise like a later cathedral, with coloured glass and echoing stone. It rises in layered platforms of brick, sun-dried and baked, repaired by generations of hands. Its corners catch moonlight. Its stairways climb from the human streets toward the invisible authority of the gods. The people below may sleep, bargain, argue, and gossip, but the temple remains awake in another sense. It watches the city. In Sumer, the temple was not a quiet side building for private devotion. It stood at the centre of economic, political, and spiritual life. Archaeological records from places such as Uruk, Ur, and Nippur show temples linked to storage, offerings, labour organisation, and ritual practice. Scholars at major universities have long studied these spaces as institutions that shaped daily survival, not merely belief. Bread, wool, beer, animals, and human work all passed through their shadow. So, when sleep became sacred, it did not float separately from society. It entered the temple world. You approach through evening dust. Your bare feet, or perhaps your sandals, feel the hard ground still holding heat from the day. A low wall throws a block of darkness across the path. Somewhere behind it, sheep shift and breathe. A guard coughs. A priest moves in silence, carrying a lamp whose flame trembles inside a clay bowl. The doorway smells of smoke and old offerings. Inside, the air changes. It is cooler, but not fresh. It is thick with burnt resin, wool, human bodies, and the faint sourness of beer. A bowl rests near an altar. A small statue gazes forward with enormous eyes. Those eyes are not sleepy. They are carved to be attentive forever. You feel the difference immediately. The ordinary city is outside. Here, every object seems to have a duty. A table, a basin, a cord, a vessel, a figurine. Even a folded cloth may belong to ritual order. Nothing feels casual. Even dust seems to wait for instruction. For some ancient Mesopotamians, sacred sleep could become part of a ritual process. Later texts from the region describe people sleeping in temples or holy places to seek guidance, healing, or a message from divine powers. The exact Sumerian evidence is fragmentary, and scholars still debate how early and how widespread formal dream incubation really was. Yet the idea that sacred space could shape a dream sits comfortably within Mesopotamian religion. The sleeper did not simply collapse into rest. The sleeper prepared. Imagine a troubled person coming at dusk. Perhaps he's seen a strange dream already. Perhaps she is ill, childless, afraid, or accused. Perhaps a merchant must decide whether to cross dangerous land, or a family waits for news from a son. They come not because night is peaceful, they come because daylight has failed them. A priest may wash hands, a prayer may be spoken, oil may be touched to skin, water may be poured, the person may bring an offering, small if poor, greater if wealthy. A woven mat might be laid in a designated chamber or near a sacred area. Nobody is promising comfort. Ancient religion is not a spa, despite what certain modern wellness brochures would absolutely try to suggest. Still, there is care in the procedure. The rhythm of ritual gives shape to fear. It tells the frightened body what to do next. You stand, you wash, you speak, you offer, you lie down, you listen inwardly. In a world where disease, famine, childbirth, debt, storms, and royal commands could overturn a life quickly, ritual gave uncertainty a path. A lamp guttering in the corner throws long shadows. The walls seem close. Outside, the city softens into distant sound. Dogs bark along canals. Someone laughs too loudly, then is hushed. A cartwheel creaks over packed earth. Then even those sounds thin away. The temple chamber asks for stillness. You lie there, watching the ceiling disappear into darkness. The woven reeds under your body scratch lightly through your clothing. The clay floor has cooled. A faint current of night air moves along your cheek. The scent of incense clings to your hair. Your breathing begins to follow the slow pulse of the room. Here, sleep is not private, it has witnesses. That is one of the strangest things to feel. In the modern world, a dream often belongs to the dreamer alone until they choose to tell it over coffee, usually while another person politely regrets asking. In Sumer, a significant dream could move outward. It could become known to a household, a priest, a ruler, or a temple official. The sleeping mind might create public consequences. A quirky fragment from Mesopotamian dream culture is the way ordinary bodily experiences could be drawn into meaning. Sleeping poorly, waking frightened, hearing a sound, seeing a figure at the edge of dream, all of it might become charged. Even the direction a person faced, or the purity of the place where one slept, could matter in later ritual imagination. The bed was not just furniture. It was a little island on dangerous water. You can almost see the sleeper trying not to move. Perhaps a dream comes quickly. A river turns black beneath a red sky. A door opens, though no hand touches it. A dead relative stands in clean clothing and says nothing. A tall figure places a staff on the ground. A bird beats its wings against a wall. Then the image breaks. The sleeper wakes. For a moment, nothing happens, only darkness breathes. Then comes the question that every ancient dreamer feared and needed. Was this only the mind? Or was it scent? Was it a warning, a blessing, a trick, or the echo of food eaten too late in the evening? Even in antiquity, people knew that not every dream carried the same weight. Some visions troubled the heart more than others. Modern scholars remain divided over how to categorize such experiences. Some interpret temple sleep as a religious technology, a method for seeking divine communication. Others examine the same evidence through anthropology, seeing controlled ritual settings that shaped memory, expectation, and emotional release. Both views can sit in the same dim room, neither fully defeating the other. The old temple does not answer loudly. It works through atmosphere, repetition, and authority. The person who sleeps inside its boundary has already accepted a hidden possibility. The dream may reveal what waking thought cannot. That belief alone changes the dream before it begins. A mind waiting for gods may notice gods in every flicker of darkness. Yet it would be too simple to call this only suggestion. Ancient Sumerians lived in a universe where the sacred did not politely stay in one corner. The divine could enter weather, illness, birth, kingship, animals, and signs in clay. Why should sleep be excluded? Sleep was one of the few times when human control softened completely. That softness mattered. In waking life, you can pretend to be strong. You can stand in a courtyard and speak confidently. You can count barley, seal jars, bargain hard, praise a superior, and hide your terror under a useful face. But in sleep, the mask slips. The body lies still. The eyes close. The voice grows silent. And into that silence something may arrive. The temple makes this vulnerability official. It frames it, protects it, and also exposes it. You sleep beneath the gaze of divine statues. You sleep near names older than your family. You sleep inside an institution that claims to understand messages from beyond your reach. That is comforting, in a way. It is also a little dangerous, because the dream you receive may not say what you hoped. Perhaps the god is absent. Perhaps the image is dark. Perhaps the interpreter frowns in the morning. Perhaps the warning is not against an enemy, but against you. Ancient religion often had this uncomfortable habit. It turned the question back toward the person asking. So the sacred chamber becomes more than a bedroom. It becomes a testing ground. It asks whether the human being can be corrected by night. It asks whether fear can be organized into meaning. It asks whether the gods might speak most clearly when pride is asleep. The lamp burns lower, the smoke thins. Outside, the river keeps moving through reeds and mud, indifferent and eternal. Inside, a sleeper waits beneath the weight of unseen attention. The temple holds its breath around them, somewhere between exhaustion and vision, between human need and divine silence. A dream begins to form. Not yet understood, not yet safe, but already important, in your ears. The echo changes into the soft press of a reed stylus against wet clay. It is a small sound, almost nothing, yet it carries a civilization forward. The scribe bends close in lamplight, his hand steady, his face half hidden by shadow. Before him rests a tablet still damp enough to receive signs, still soft enough to be wounded into memory. The clay is not noble, it is mud, water, and patience. Across its surface, tiny wedge-shaped marks gather in rows. They look abstract to you, like bird tracks hardened after rain. To the trained eye, they become words, measures, names, offerings, instructions, prayers, and warnings. The scribe is not only making a document, he is trapping a moment before it disappears. This is one of the great facts of ancient Mesopotamia. Cuneiform writing developed in southern Mesopotamia during the late 4th millennium BC, originally for administration, then gradually for literature, law, ritual, and scholarly knowledge. Researchers at institutions such as the University of Pennsylvania, Oxford, and Yale have spent generations studying these tablets as some of humanity's earliest written records. The dream, once spoken at dawn, could now enter a longer life. That changes everything. A dream told only by mouth can fade, soften, or become more impressive each time it is repeated. Humans are charming that way. Give us one strange image in sleep, and by sunset we may have added thunder, a god, and possibly a very meaningful goat. Writing does not stop exaggeration, but it does give interpretation a harder shell. You see the tablet turned in a palm. Its surface catches the flame. The scribe listens as someone speaks, perhaps a priest, perhaps a household head, perhaps an anxious messenger sent by a person of importance. The words come carefully, because dream language is slippery. A river may not be a river, a door may not be a door. A falling wall may not be only mud brick falling. Every image waits for a second meaning. In Mesopotamian scholarship, dreams could be gathered into omen traditions. Some later dream omen collections follow a repeated pattern. If a person sees such a thing in a dream, then such an outcome may follow. The formula is simple, almost cold, but the emotions behind it are not cold at all. Behind each line stands a human being who wanted to know whether tomorrow would hurt. You lean closer to the clay. Perhaps the dream says a man enters water and comes out clean. Perhaps it says a woman sees a shining object in a dark room. Perhaps it says someone receives bread, loses a garment, climbs a wall, meets the dead, or hears a voice with no visible mouth. The tablet does not need to explain the fear. The fear is understood. Ancient records often preserve life by accident. A tablet may survive because a building burned, baking the clay harder. A library may endure because disaster passed through it. That is the uncomfortable joke of archaeology. Sometimes destruction becomes the reason memory remains. A city falls, shelves collapse, rooms choke with ash. And later scholars politely thank the catastrophe for its preservation work. A quirky tidbit hides inside these omen traditions. Some dream signs sound wonderfully ordinary. Eating, drinking, carrying objects, seeing animals, or losing clothing could become clues to future fortune or danger. A dream of a fish might not stay a fish. A dream of a broken vessel might not be allowed to remain kitchen drama. In this world, even a lost sandal might look suspiciously like fate wearing a disguise. The scribes treated such things with discipline. They did not write as modern poets might write, floating in personal emotion. They arranged, they classified, they repeated structures, they created lists. The ancient Mesopotamian scholarly mind loved patterns, and that love shaped how dreams were understood. A strange image became less frightening when placed inside a system. The unknown was still unknown, but now it had a shelf. There is comfort in shelves. You can imagine a room where tablets are stacked, labelled, and stored in baskets or on wooden supports. The air smells of clay, reed, dust, and old smoke. A young apprentice squints at signs by lamplight. An older scholar corrects him without much mercy, somewhere nearby. A tablet about grain rations rests beside a tablet about illness, beside a ritual instruction, beside a line about a dream. The sacred and practical lie close together. That closeness matters, because ancient people did not divide reality the way modern people often do. A tax record was practical, a ritual text was sacred, an omen tablet was scholarly. Yet all belonged to the same city, the same clay, the same search for order. To record a dream was to admit that night could affect daylight, and that the invisible might require paperwork. You might smile at that gently. Imagine fate needing a clerk. Yet this is exactly where Sumerian and Mesopotamian culture becomes so fascinating. The divine message, once received in the unstable theatre of sleep, could be moved into a human archive. The dream became an object. It could be carried, copied, compared, taught, and disputed. Once written, it no longer belonged entirely to the sleeper. It entered tradition. Scholars still debate how much of the earlier Sumerian dream belief can be reconstructed from later Akkadian materials and bilingual traditions. Some specialists see strong continuity across Mesopotamian religious culture. Others warn that later collections may reshape older ideas through different political, linguistic, and theological lenses. The tablet is evidence, yes, but it is also a survivor from a layered world. The clay remembers selectively. Still, certain themes return with quiet persistence. Dreams may warn. Dreams may reveal divine favour. Dreams may expose danger. Dreams may require ritual action. Dreams may show that a person's private sleep belongs to a larger cosmic order. The dream is not loose mist. It is a sign waiting to be read. As the scribe works, you sense the power of the interpreter growing. The dreamer may have seen the image, but the scholar gives it social meaning. That is a delicate exchange. The sleeper brings fear, the interpreter brings tradition. Between them, a future begins to take shape. A wrong reading could trouble a household. A favourable reading could calm a king. A dark reading could send offerings to a temple, delay a journey, or encourage a ritual of protection. These tablets were not just about curiosity. They were tools for decision, and decisions leave marks on lives. The stylus presses again. Wet clay receives another sign. It does not protest. It has received kings, cattle, debts, hymns, complaints, curses, and prayers. Now it receives a dream. One more fragment of night enters the human record. Think of that for a moment. A person sleeps, sees something strange, wakes unsettled, speaks it aloud, and somewhere a scribe fixes the disturbance in clay. Thousands of years later, the sleeper is gone. The room is gone. The city wall is gone. The god statue may be broken, but the marks remain. This is how a dream becomes older than the dreamer. The tablet cools. The lamp shrinks. The scribe sets aside his stylus, perhaps rubbing clay from his fingers. Outside, the first hint of morning touches the edges of roofs. Birds begin in the reeds. The city will soon return to labour, bargaining, heat, and noise. But under the daily world, something has shifted. A night image has been captured. A warning has been shaped into signs. The hidden language of sleep has been given a body made of earth, and quietly, without raising its voice, the clay begins to speak. For a moment, it feels as though the city has become quieter than sleep itself. The lamps have lowered. The household animals have stopped shifting in their pens. Even the river seems to move with less confidence, as if it too is listening for something above the roofs. You're inside the ancient imagination now, where gods do not wait politely beyond the world. They enter weather, grain, illness, kingship, childbirth, and the small hidden rooms of the mind. They are not decorative figures carved for festivals. They are powers with moods, duties, tempers, hungers, and long memories. Very long memories. In Sumerian religion, the gods were deeply involved in the order of the world and the fate of cities. Records from temple hymns, royal inscriptions, and mythological compositions show divine beings connected to places, offices, waters, storms, love, war, wisdom, and the underworld. Scholars from major research centres, including the Oriental Institute at Chicago and Oxford's cuneiform specialists, have emphasised how divine presence shaped public life, not just private belief. So a dream could become more than an image. It could become contact. Imagine the sleeper lying still beneath a roof of packed clay. The skin cools slowly after the day's heat. A faint smell of wool and ash clings to the room. Outside, a jar cracks softly as it cools. Then the dream opens, not like a curtain, but like water darkening beneath the moon. A figure appears. Perhaps the dreamer knows the god by symbols rather than face. A horned crown, a radiant robe, a staff, a weapon. A seated form larger than any human presence should be. The image may be brilliant, but also difficult to hold. Divine beings in ancient texts often feel close and distant at once, like thunder heard across a plain. The god speaks, or perhaps only gestures. That is enough. A single command in a dream might tell a ruler to build, repair, give, turn back, go forward, cleanse, or beware. A divine appearance might offer protection, but it might also expose failure. Gods in Mesopotamian stories did not exist to make humans emotionally comfortable. They had a rather impressive talent for making humans remember their place, and that place was low. You sensed the old structure tightening around the sleeper. Human beings serve, gods command, cities depend on divine favour, crops grow because order holds, kings rule because authority descends from above. If the divine enters sleep, the dreamer cannot treat that arrival as a passing oddity. A god in a dream is not background decoration. It is an event. This is where the original purpose of dreams begins to deepen. Dreams might warn because the gods allowed warning before punishment. They might guide because humanity was considered vulnerable and often foolish. They might disturb because divine order had been disturbed first. The dream becomes less like entertainment and more like a night court, where the sleeping person is summoned without notice. No one enjoys surprise court. A quirky element of Mesopotamian dream tradition is that divine messages did not always arrive with elegant clarity. A person might see a symbol, a creature, a ritual object, or an impossible scene. The gods, apparently, did not feel obliged to use simple bullet points. Ancient dreamers needed interpreters because the divine language often behaved like a locked door with beautiful carvings. You can feel the tension in that. If a god speaks plainly, obedience is terrifying but simple. If a god speaks in symbols, the fear multiplies. Did the dream mean favour, anger, warning, or deception? Was the shining figure truly divine, or something hostile wearing borrowed brightness in a world filled with spirits, demons, ancestors, and gods? Not every nighttime visitor could be trusted. The sleeper wakes before dawn, heart thudding. The room is unchanged, which somehow makes everything stranger. The lamp has died. The mat still scratches the shoulder. A child breathes in the corner. A jar stands beside the wall. No divine footprint marks the floor. Nothing visible proves that the night held more than imagination. Yet the dream remains. It glows behind the eyes. A person might carry such a vision to a priest, elder, or professional interpreter. The telling itself becomes ritualized by seriousness. Details matter. What direction did the figure come from? What did the god hold? Was the voice calm or angry? Did the dreamer stand, kneel, flee, eat, wash, receive, or lose something? The body inside the dream becomes evidence. Modern historians debate how literally ancient people understood divine dream speech. Some argue that dream accounts served religious and political functions, especially when kings used them to justify building projects or military decisions. Others suggest that many dream narratives preserved genuine personal experiences shaped by faith, fear, and expectation. Both ideas can breathe together under the same dark roof. Ancient evidence rarely behaves like a clean answer. You may picture a king waking from a vision with more than personal anxiety. His dream can become public language. If a god commands a temple restoration, the project gains sacred urgency. If a goddess promises favour, the ruler's authority shines brighter. If a warning appears, enemies and advisors may suddenly become much more careful in their sentences. The dream has left the bedroom. It moves into politics, architecture, and memory. Stone may be laid because of a night vision. Offerings may increase because a god appeared in darkness. A journey may pause because a symbol frightened someone powerful. This is the quiet force of divine dreams in Mesopotamia. They begin in vulnerability, then reshape waking action. Still, the ordinary dreamer matters too. A farmer, a mother, a trader, or a temple worker might not command armies or build monuments, yet each lived inside the same sacred weather. A dream of divine displeasure could send a person toward prayer. A dream of blessing could steady a frightened heart. A warning dream could alter a small decision, which might save a life, or seem to. That uncertainty is powerful. When people believe dreams can carry divine messages, they do not simply sleep differently. They live differently. They become attentive to patterns. A bird at dawn feels connected to an image at night. A sudden illness seems linked to a neglected ritual. A chance meeting becomes less chance and more message. The world grows crowded with meaning. In your imagined chamber, the dream arises slowly. The first light has not yet touched the courtyard. Air presses cool against the skin. Someone pours water into a basin, and the sound is startlingly clear. The dreamer washes, perhaps carefully, perhaps with trembling hands. The divine image will not leave. A god has crossed the border. The strange thing is that this border can only be crossed when the dreamer is least guarded. Not in the market, not in the court, not during a loud festival filled with drums and incense. The message comes when the body is horizontal and helpless, when the mouth is silent, when the clever waking self has finally stopped performing. Perhaps that was the point. Perhaps dreams were understood as sacred interruptions because humans could not argue properly while asleep. No bargaining, no excuses, no polished public face. Only the soul, open in darkness, receiving what it could not summon by daylight. The gods speak through that opening. They may bless, they may warn, they may correct, they may terrify, they may remain silent, which can be worse than speech. The sleeping mind becomes a small chamber inside a much larger temple, and every image in it may belong to an unseen order. The sky outside pales slowly. Roosters call from courtyards. Smoke begins to rise again from cooking fires. The city returns to its chores, its hunger, its debts, and its beautifully ancient inconvenience. But for the dreamer, the morning is not ordinary. Something has been placed inside it. A voice from beyond waking life has entered the day, and now the day must answer. The palace wakes differently from the houses along the canal. It does not wake with one lamp, one grinding stone, one mother calling a child from sleep. It wakes in layers, with servants, guards, scribes, messengers, cooks, stable hands, and officials moving through courtyards before the sun has fully risen. You stand near the edge of that morning, where power smells of dust, leather, wool, and polished wood. Bronze fittings catch pale light. Doors open with heavy wooden sounds. Men carry sealed tablets from one chamber to another. Somewhere, A donkey brays with extremely poor timing, proving that even royal administration cannot defeat livestock. The king is awake. He may have slept on a raised bed, surrounded by woven fabrics and guarded thresholds. He may have closed his eyes beneath a roof stronger than most homes in the city. Yet no wall, however thick, can keep out a troubling dream. Night enters rulers as easily as it enters labourers. This is one of the clear historical facts preserved across Mesopotamian tradition. Kings and rulers often treated dreams and omens as serious signs before public action, especially war, building projects, and journeys. Royal inscriptions and later literary texts show that divine approval mattered deeply to political authority. A ruler did not simply act because he wanted to act. He needed the world above him to agree, or at least appear to agree. That difference matters. Power has always enjoyed borrowing the voice of heaven. Ancient kings were not shy about it. When a dream supported a decision, it could be remembered as sacred guidance. When it troubled the decision, it demanded caution. Either way, the dream became part of rule. You enter a chamber where the air is still cool. The floor is swept clean. A low table holds tablets, seals, and cords. The king sits with a face that others must read carefully, because royal fear is dangerous in every direction. If a shepherd fears a dream, his household worries. If a king fears a dream, armies may wait, roads may close, and officials may suddenly discover an urgent reason to stand very quietly. The dream may have come before battle. Perhaps the king saw a river too swollen to cross. Perhaps he watched a lion turn away from him. Perhaps a weapon broke in his hand. Perhaps a goddess stood at a gate and refused him entry. None of these images needs to be dramatic to be frightening. In a world trained to read symbols, a small change in a dream could weigh more than a shouted threat. The interpreter is summoned. He does not arrive as a magician from a children's tale. He arrives as a learned professional within a culture that values signs, patterns, ritual knowledge, and inherited texts. His authority comes from training, memory, tradition, and closeness to sacred institutions. He listens not only for what the king saw, but for how the dream was arranged. Was the king standing or sitting? Was the road open or blocked? Was the animal calm or hostile? Was water clear, muddy, rising, or gone? These details matter because a ruler's dream is never only personal. It touches the city's storehouses, soldiers, temples, fields, and future captives. A royal vision may decide whether men sharpen weapons or return to irrigation work. It may lead to offerings, purification rites, delays, prayers, or bold movement. The palace holds its breath. You can hear it in small sounds. A stylus clicks against clay. A guard shifts his spear. A servant's bracelet taps a jar. Somewhere beyond the courtyard, horses stamp and toss their heads. The smell of sweat and leather already gathers near the gate, because politics often pretends to be divine, but still requires transport. A quirky thread in Mesopotamian royal culture is how practical and supernatural concern sits side by side without embarrassment. A king might inspect troops, measure supplies, consult scouts, and then take a dream omen with equal seriousness. Modern minds may try to separate strategy from sacred warning. Ancient rulers often preferred a thicker net. Why ignore any possible source of information when your enemies have spears? It is not foolish inside that world. It is caution with incense. A king who dismisses omens risks appearing arrogant before gods and people. A king who obeys every troubling sign risks paralysis. The delicate art of rule lies somewhere between terror and confidence. Dreams could steady a ruler, but they could also unmake his certainty. That may be why they held such power. War is the most obvious setting, but it is not the only one. A ruler might dream before commissioning a temple, restoring a shrine, appointing officials, or travelling through dangerous territory. The dream does not merely predict, it authorises. It suggests that a political act belongs to a cosmic design. That's an elegant tool. It is also a dangerous one. A dream can protect a king from blame. If a project succeeds, divine guidance shines over him. If it fails, perhaps the signs were misread, or enemies offended the gods, or further rituals are required. Human responsibility becomes wrapped in sacred cloth. Very convenient cloth, honestly, and remarkably durable, yet the fear may still be real. Do not imagine every royal dream as propaganda. A man who rules a city may still wake with his heart racing. He may still remember his father's death, a failed harvest, a rival prince, a rebellion, or the silent faces of soldiers waiting for orders. Authority does not remove fear. It gives fear more people to injure. Modern scholars continue to discuss how royal dream accounts should be interpreted. Some read them as political literature crafted to strengthen legitimacy. Others see genuine religious experience shaped into official language. A careful view allows both possibilities. Because ancient power often lived where belief and usefulness touched hands, the king rises. His robe brushes against the floor. Light enters the room in a long, pale strip. The interpreter may recommend offerings, a delay, a cleansing, a favourable reading, or a warning. A scribe records the decision because power loves records almost as much as it loves obedience. The dream has become administrative. Outside, the army waits in partial readiness. Men tighten straps, check blades, lead animals, murmur complaints, and pretend they are not afraid. The smell of barley cakes, sweat, and dust moves through the camp. A young soldier watches the palace gate and wonders whether the day will bring orders. He does not know that a dream may be holding him in place. That is the unsettling reach of royal sleep. One person's night vision can flow outward like water through canals. It can touch a soldier's feet, a farmer's tax, a mason's labour, a priest's ritual, a widow's future. A private image becomes public weather. The king's dream may be favourable. The gods may appear to clear the road. The interpreter may speak with confidence, and the palace may release its breath. Drums may sound. Orders may move. Men may march beneath banners while the city watches from rooftops and gates. Or the dream may darken the morning. A broken weapon, a closed gate, a dead man speaking, a river that will not part. The king may hesitate, and hesitation itself becomes a sign. Advisors glance at one another, priests prepare offerings, scribes wait with damp clay. Everybody tries to look calm, which is usually how you know nobody is calm. You feel the strange intimacy of it. The ruler, who seems larger than others in public ceremony, becomes small in the presence of night. Sleep strips him of his throne, his guards, his titles, and his formal speech. In the dream, he may be commanded, judged, refused, or warned. The gods don't need to request an appointment. They come when eyes are closed. For the Sumerian mind, this made dreams part of kingship's hidden machinery. A ruler might speak by day, but he might be spoken to by night. He might command armies, but a dream could command him. His authority depended not only on strength, but on listening to what moved beyond strength. Perhaps that is why royal dreams feel so quietly powerful. They reveal that ancient kings did not stand at the top of the world. They stood beneath a ceiling of unseen powers, reading cracks of light in darkness. Their crowns glittered in the sun, but their decisions were haunted by sleep. The palace courtyard brightens. Birds settle on mud brick walls. A messenger receives a sealed order and hurries toward the gate. No trumpet announces the origin of the command. No soldier hears the image that shaped his road. Yet somewhere behind the walls, a king remembers what he saw, and the city moves because night has spoken. Your mind settles into the hour before sunrise because the city is neither asleep nor awake. The darkness has thinned, but the sun has not yet claimed the walls. Roof lines hover as low shapes against the paling sky. Somewhere, a door creaks open, and cold air slips into a room smelling of ashes and old wool. This is the hour when a dream feels most real. A person sits upright on a woven mat, breathing carefully. The images are still bright behind the eyes. The body has returned to the room, but the mind remains partly elsewhere. A river, a face, a broken jar, a voice from a shadowed doorway. The dream refuses to dissolve. It waits like a messenger who has delivered bad news, then remains standing there. In ancient Sumerian thought, the purpose of a meaningful dream was not simply to entertain the sleeper. It could guide, warn, correct, or reveal what ordinary sight could not reach. Mainstream research from cuneiform scholars at the University of Pennsylvania and Yale has shown that Mesopotamian cultures placed dreams within wider systems of omens, ritual response, and divine communication. Sleep could become a channel through which danger entered awareness before it entered the street. That idea is gentle at first. Then it becomes unsettling, because a warning is never neutral. It suggests that disaster already has a shape somewhere beyond sight. It suggests that the future is approaching, and that the dream has heard its footsteps before the waking world has noticed. The sleeper receives not rest, but responsibility. A dream gives you knowledge. Knowledge asks for action. You can imagine an ordinary man waking after seeing his house roof collapse in darkness. The house is still standing. His children sleep nearby. His wife turns under a blanket, undisturbed. The clay jars remain in place. Nothing has fallen. Nothing has broken. Not yet. He may laugh softly at himself, trying to throw the vision away. Perhaps he ate too heavily. Perhaps the night was too hot. Perhaps fear made pictures. Yet ancient dream culture did not allow every disturbing image to be dismissed so easily. A repeated dream, a vivid divine figure, or an image matching known omen patterns might demand attention. The dream's original purpose, then, was partly interruption. It interrupted pride. It interrupted habit. It interrupted the dangerous confidence that daylight gives. When you're awake, you believe you understand your path. You know your fields, your debts, your enemies, your walls, your family. Sleep enters quietly and says, perhaps not. That is rude, but useful. The Sumerian world was full of fragile arrangements. Canals had to be maintained. Harvest depended on water and timing. Cities depended on labour, storage, and divine favour. A sickness could pass through a household quickly. A political dispute could become violence. A failed flood could become hunger. In such a world, any sign of approaching trouble mattered. Dreams became part of survival. You walk through a morning lane while the dreamer searches for meaning. The ground is damp near a water jar. A dog noses at scraps beside a wall. The first baking bread releases a warm smell into the air. Women speak in low voices. Men lift tools and baskets. Life begins again with its ordinary weight, but the dreamer moves differently through it. He looks twice at the roof beam. He watches the canal level. He remembers the face in the dream. The purpose of dreams was not always grand. It didn't need to involve a king, a god, or a temple staircase. A warning could belong to the small machinery of life. Do not travel today. Make an offering. Purify the house. Speak to the priest. Avoid a quarrel. Delay a risky bargain. Watch the child. Repair the wall. The future may turn on such small hinges. A quirky tradition from the wider Mesopotamian world suggests that even dream actions could carry reversed or surprising meanings. Receiving something might not always mean gain. Losing something might not always mean loss. An unpleasant image could sometimes point toward protection, while a pleasant one might conceal danger. Ancient dream logic loved to behave like a clever guest who refuses to explain the joke. That unpredictability made interpretation necessary. The dream was not only a message, it was a puzzle with consequences. Its purpose was to force attention, but attention needed training. Without interpretation, a warning could remain a cloud without rain. With interpretation, it could become ritual, caution, or decision. You sense how this system changes the meaning of sleep. Rest becomes a kind of listening. The body withdraws from labour, but the mind enters a field of signs. The dream does not replace waking knowledge. It adds a hidden layer beneath it. A farmer still watches soil. A merchant still counts goods. A mother still listens for fever in a child's breath. But now each may also ask what the night has shown. This is not modern psychology in ancient clothing. The Sumerian and Mesopotamian world understood the self differently. Thoughts, feelings, divine influence, fate, and bodily condition were braided together in ways that do not match modern categories. Yet the human experience remains recognizable. Fear speaks in images. Hope does too. The old debate continues among scholars. Some historians view dream warnings as tools of religious culture, giving structure to anxiety and decision-making. Others emphasize genuine ancient belief in divine messages, without reducing that belief to politics or psychology. A third approach sees dreams as social events, where private experience became meaningful only after ritual interpretation. The evidence allows more than one door. You stand in that doorway with the dreamer. He may go to a priest. He may tell his household. He may make an offering in a small domestic space. He may carry the dream silently and let it guide his movements. Whatever he does, the dream has already succeeded in one purpose. It has made the ordinary morning strange. That strangeness is important. A person who has been warned notices more. The crack in a wall becomes visible. The tone of a neighbour changes. A cloud over the field seems darker. A child's cough feels sharper. Perhaps nothing happens, and the dream fades into embarrassment. Perhaps something happens, and the dream becomes proof. Humans remember fulfilled warnings. We forget many others. That is not sarcasm against ancient people. It is a mercy toward all people. Every age builds meaning from what it survives. The Sumerians did so with clay, ritual, gods, and signs. Modern people do it with calendars, search engines, medical tests, and anxious messages sent at midnight. The tools differ. The trembling is familiar. Still, the ancient dream carries a special gravity. It comes from a world where humanity was not imagined as the centre of creation. Humans were servants within a divine order, necessary yet limited, clever yet easily confused. The dream warning reminded them of this condition. You may build cities, count grain, carve seals, and command workers, but you do not see the whole pattern. Sleep humbles the builder. It places the labourer, priest, mother, and king into the same posture. Eyes closed, breath slowed, hands empty. No title can fully protect the sleeper. No clever tongue can argue with a symbol before it arrives. The dream comes while power has stepped aside. Perhaps that is why dreams were trusted. They arrived when human performance was weakest. They bypassed the public face. They entered beneath pride, beneath planning, beneath the carefully arranged speech of daylight. A warning dream did not ask whether the sleeper felt ready. It simply appeared. The sun rises now over the flat land. The first light strikes the upper temple walls and makes them glow with a dull gold. Reeds stir along the canal. The city becomes loud with work, hunger, and expectation. Yet inside one person, the night remains open. The dream has done its work. It has placed a question inside the day. It has made the future feel near enough to touch. It has turned sleep into a guard at the border of danger, half merciful and half frightening. And as the dreamer steps into morning, he carries the old Sumerian truth quietly within him. The warning may be a burden. It may also be a gift. The morning has widened, but the dream has not disappeared. It has changed shape. It follows the dreamer through alleys and courtyards, hiding inside ordinary objects. A jar near the wall seems too cracked. A reed basket seems too dark within. A closed door feels as if it remembers being opened somewhere else. This is how symbols begin their work. You move through the city while light creeps over mud, brick and reed matting. The air smells of baking bread, damp canal banks, fish, donkey sweat, and smoke from small hearths. A woman shakes dust from a woven cloth. A child chases another child past a doorway. A merchant argues over weights with the calm outrage of someone who has done this every week for years. Life is awake, yet the dream speaks underneath it. In Mesopotamian omen traditions, dream images were often treated as signs needing interpretation. A river, animal, garment, gate, weapon, vessel, or dead person could point toward outcomes beyond its visible form. Researchers at universities such as Chicago, Pennsylvania, and Oxford have shown that these interpretations belong to a broad scholarly habit of reading the world through patterns. The dream image was not always the message itself. It was the covering placed over the message. A symbol is a veil. Consider water. In a land shaped by rivers, water could never be only water. It brought fertility, trade, travel, irrigation, fish, and clay. It also brought flooding, disease, erosion, and the slow swallowing of fields. So, if a dreamer saw a canal rising in darkness, the image carried more than scenery. It might suggest abundance, danger, cleansing, obstruction, or the boundary between worlds. The dreamer wakes and remembers the water. Was it clear? Was it muddy? Was he standing safely on the bank? Was she pulled under? Did a boat cross it? Or did the river refuse passage? Every detail sharpens the sign. A calm stream and a violent flood do not speak with the same voice. Ancient interpreters knew this. Meaning lived in the small turn of the image. Now imagine a door. In a house, a door separates family from street, safety from exposure, sleep from intrusion. In a temple, a door may mark the boundary between common space and sacred presence. In a palace, a door may decide who approaches power. A dream of a door opening by itself could feel hopeful, threatening, or deeply improper. Who opened it? What stood beyond it did the dreamer enter, or remain afraid outside? A closed door can be louder than speech. Animals also walk through the dream world with heavy symbolic feet. Lions, dogs, birds, snakes, cattle, and fish could all carry meanings shaped by daily experience and sacred imagination. Some animals protected, some polluted, some announced danger, some belonged to gods, some simply terrified people because teeth are persuasive in every century. That last point deserves respect. A dream of a lion might suggest royal power, danger, conquest, or divine force. A snake might suggest hidden threat, healing, renewal, or underworld unease, depending on context. A bird beating its wings against a wall might become an image of trapped messages, troubled movement, or the soul's unrest. None of this was casual guessing. It belonged to inherited frameworks, though those frameworks were never simple. A quirky feature of ancient dream interpretation is how humble objects could become strangely serious. A garment, shoe, bowl, bed, or loaf could carry meaning. A torn garment might trouble the sleeper. Receiving bread might comfort or confuse. Losing a shoe could be read as more than clumsiness. Although everyone has had a morning when footwear feels personally hostile, the Sumerian mind did not need symbols to be spectacular. This is important. Modern people often expect ancient mystery to appear through enormous monuments, shining gods, eclipses, and thunder. But ancient warning often preferred smaller forms, a broken handle, a missing garment, a darkened threshold, a familiar voice speaking from the wrong place. The unsettling force comes from ordinary things turning slightly against their ordinary use. That is where dreams become powerful. They make the known unfamiliar. You pass a courtyard where jars are stacked against a wall. In daylight, they are storage. In a dream, one might be a body, a womb, a house, a treasury, or a fragile future. A vessel that breaks may suggest loss, release, death, or transformation. It depends on what the tradition says, what the dreamer feels, and what the interpreter dares to say aloud. The interpreter's role is never neutral. He takes a floating image and fastens it to consequence. He listens to a dream of black sky and tells the dreamer whether to fear sickness, ritual impurity, political danger, or divine displeasure. He may calm a household. He may disturb it. He may send someone toward offerings, washing, prayer, or delay. There's quiet power. Scholars still debate whether dream omens should be read primarily as religious texts, early psychological records, literary formulae, or practical decision tools. Some emphasize the learned scribal tradition behind the lists. Others focus on how ordinary people may have used such interpretations in moments of crisis. The safest answer may be the least tidy one. Dreams worked in several worlds at once. They were private and public. They were emotional and ritual. They were symbolic and practical. The dreamer carries an image of a broken gate to someone who understands gates differently. To the dreamer, it may mean fear. To the interpreter, it may suggest invasion, illness, failed protection, or an opening created by unseen forces. The same image grows larger when placed within tradition. It becomes part of a map the dreamer did not know he was walking through. You can sense why this would be comforting. A symbol, once interpreted, stops being pure chaos. The dreamer can do something: offer, wash, wait, avoid, repair, speak, confess, ask forgiveness. The warning becomes an instruction, or at least the beginning of one. Yet comfort has a shadow. If everything can mean something, peace becomes difficult. A bad dream might cling to the day. A strange animal near the canal might confirm it. A jar breaking in the afternoon might seem connected. The mind begins weaving. The city becomes a net of signs, and the dreamer walks through it carefully, afraid of pulling the wrong thread. Perhaps that was the hidden warning inside dreams. Not only that danger existed, but that human beings needed guidance because they could misread the world. The dream delivered images. Interpretation turned them into paths. But every path could be mistaken. A symbol does not remove uncertainty. It gives uncertainty a shape. The dreamer enters a shaded space near a temple wall. The brick is rough under the hand. Somewhere above, birds settle, then scatter. A priest's assistant carries a bowl of water. Light flashes in it for a moment, and the dreamer thinks again of the river seen in sleep. Was it warning, blessing, or memory? No answer arrives immediately. The old system asks for patience. It asks the dreamer to sit with the image until it yields a little meaning. It asks for trust in tradition, but also fear of error. That is the strange balance of ancient dream symbolism. It feels like a language, but one spoken by powers who do not explain themselves fully. The city continues around you. Bakers call to customers, workers shoulder baskets, a scribe dries a tablet in the sun. Children play beside walls older than their grandparents. The dream image remains among them, invisible but active, like a seed beneath soil, a river in darkness, a bird at a wall, a broken door, a garment lost in dust. These are not only pictures, they are little openings through which the ancient mind glimpses warning. Each one asks the same patient question: what is the world trying to say? And beneath that question, softer and more troubling, another one waits. What have you failed to hear? The dreamer does not carry the vision alone for long. In a city built on labour, water, grain, and divine favour, even a private night can become someone else's responsibility by morning. The dream moves from the mat to the courtyard, from the courtyard to whispered advice, and from whispered advice toward a person trained to listen with dangerous patience. You step into a shaded passage near the temple precinct. The sun has climbed, but the air still keeps pockets of coolness beside thick walls. Dust clings to ankles. A reed mat hangs in a doorway and clicks lightly against its frame. Somewhere nearby, a lamb complains with the dramatic confidence of an animal certain that history has wronged it. Inside, a learned man waits. He may be a priest, a scholar, a ritual specialist, or a scribe attached to temple life. The categories are not as clean as modern job titles. Ancient Mesopotamian knowledge lived in overlapping roles. The person who knew prayers might also know omens. The person who copied lists might also advise on danger. The person who served the gods might also guide anxious humans through the meanings of sleep. That combination gave quiet power. A mainstream historical fact rests beneath this scene. Mesopotamian scholarship developed specialized experts who preserved omen traditions, ritual instructions, and interpretations on clay tablets. Research from institutions such as Yale, Chicago, and the University of Pennsylvania has shown that scribal learning was central to how signs were organized and transmitted. Knowledge of dreams did not float freely in the streets. It was guarded, copied, taught, and used. The dreamer speaks. Perhaps the words come awkwardly at first. Dreams are slippery when brought into daylight. The dreamer tries to place images in order, but sleep has its own geography. A door came before a river, or perhaps the river was already inside the house. A dead woman spoke without moving her lips. A black bird flew through a room where no window existed. The interpreter listens without laughing. That silence matters. It gives the dream weight. It tells the dreamer that the images deserve attention, even if they sound absurd in morning air. The listener may ask questions. What did you hold? Who stood to your right? Was the water clear? Did the figure speak your name? Did you wake afraid, relieved, sweating, cold, or unable to move? The body is part of the testimony. Ancient interpreters did not work only with images. They worked with patterns of experience. A dream seen during illness, after ritual impurity, before travel, or during household trouble could be read differently. The dream was not separate from the dreamer's life. It grew inside a particular web of fear, duty, status, and obligation. You notice how authority forms in the room. The dreamer owns the experience, but not its full meaning. The interpreter owns the tradition, but not the dream. Between them, meaning is negotiated, though not equally. The expert has the tablet lists, the prayers, the inherited rules, and the confidence of an institution behind him. That is useful. It is also risky. A priestly interpretation could calm a person, but it could also bind them to action, bring an offering, avoid a journey, purify the house, repair a neglected shrine, confess an offence, wait 3 days, do not speak with a certain person, give bread, oil, wool, or silver according to means and status. Suddenly, a dream has economic and social consequences. The sleeping mind has entered the marketplace. A quirky detail from Mesopotamian sign culture is how expert knowledge could make everyday events feel professionally suspicious. A cracked jar, a dog's behaviour, a bird's movement, a birth anomaly, a storm cloud, or a troubling dream might all become material for interpretation. It is easy to imagine an ancient specialist silently ruining everyone's relaxed afternoon by knowing too much about omens. Still, people sought such knowledge because fear needs structure. Without interpretation, the dreamer remains trapped in shapeless anxiety. With interpretation, fear receives a name, and a named fear can be answered. Ritual action may not remove danger, but it gives the person something to do with trembling hands. That is not a small gift. You sit near the wall and watch dust move in a strip of sunlight. The interpreter may reach for a tablet or recite from memory. Perhaps he compares the dream to known patterns. Perhaps he frames it through the favour or anger of a deity. Perhaps he recommends a small protective rite, spoken softly and performed before the day grows too old. The dreamer nods. Relief and worry mix together. A warning has been translated, but translation never makes the invisible harmless. It only brings it closer. Now the dreamer knows what the image may demand. The burden has changed shape, from confusion to responsibility. This is where dream interpretation becomes social power. A person who interprets dreams can influence movement, spending, ritual behaviour, family decisions, and even political caution. In the hands of a palace expert, an interpretation may affect campaigns or building plans. In the hands of a temple specialist, it may direct offerings and rites. In the hands of a household advisor, it may alter a marriage, journey, or business choice. Soft voices can move heavy things. Modern scholars continue to debate the extent of professional dream interpretation in early Sumer compared with later Mesopotamian periods. Some emphasize continuity in religious and scribal culture across centuries. Others caution that later omen collections should not be projected too neatly onto the earlier cities. The evidence invites care because ancient knowledge was both preserved and reshaped as languages, dynasties, and institutions changed. The uncertainty is part of the atmosphere. It reminds you that the old world cannot be fully recovered. You stand among fragments. Tablets survive, but many voices do not. We know more about trained specialists than frightened dreamers, because specialists wrote things down and frightened people usually just had a terrible night. History, as usual, has favourites. Yet even through that imbalance, the shape of power is visible. The interpreter stands at a crossing point between gods and humans, sleep and action, fear and ritual, private image and public order. He does not need a throne. He has a different kind of authority. He can say what a dream means. That sentence can change a life. Imagine the dreamer leaving the room with instructions. The lane outside is bright now. Sunlight strikes the white dust so sharply that the eyes narrow. The city seems unchanged. The same vendors shout. The same children quarrel. The same smell of fish and warm clay rises near the canal. Yet the dreamer moves with new caution. Perhaps he carries a small offering. Perhaps she repeats a prayer. Perhaps they avoid a row they plan to take. The interpreter remains behind, ready for the next anxiety brought by night. Another person will come. Another image will be spoken. Another pattern will be searched. The work continues because dreams continue, and dreams are excellent at refusing to become obsolete. You feel the quiet machinery of the system now. Sleep produces images. Fear seeks meaning. Experts provide interpretation. Ritual answers interpretation. Society absorbs the result. The process is calm on the surface, but underneath it lies a deep admission. Human beings do not trust themselves to understand what they see in darkness, so they build readers of darkness. The temple wall throws a long shadow across the ground. In that shadow, power does not shout. It murmurs through formulae, remembered signs, and careful advice. It passes from clay tablets into human choices. It gives shape to warnings, and sometimes it gives warnings a price. The dreamer disappears into the street. The interpreter turns back toward his tablets, and somewhere, already, another sleeper is waiting for night. The city darkens again, and the edges of sleep become less gentle. The air over the canals cools, but the rooms keep some of the day's stored heat. Lamps burn with wavering flames. Shadows climb walls and stretch across reed mats, thin at first, then thicker, as if darkness has learned the shape of every house. You listen to the night settle. It is not silent. It never is. Dogs bark beyond the lanes. Insects drone near stagnant water. A child coughs in a room nearby. A jar lid scrapes softly against clay. Far away, someone closes a wooden door, and the sound arrives late, softened by dust and distance. For ancient Mesopotamians, the night was not only restful, it was also vulnerable territory. Texts from Sumerian and later Akkadian traditions describe hostile beings, restless dead, demons, and unseen forces that could threaten the body and disturb the household. Major university research on Mesopotamian religion has shown that illness, fear, pollution, and spiritual danger were often understood as connected parts of human suffering. Sleep made that suffering easier to enter. When the body lies down, it stops guarding itself. The hands release their tools, the eyes close, the voice grows quiet, the mind loosens its grip on familiar walls, family names, and the ordinary logic of daylight. This is why the border of sleep could feel dangerous. It was a doorway with no strong latch. A dream might carry warning from a god. It might also carry disturbance from something darker. You imagine a sleeper turning on a mat, unable to wake fully. Breath catches. The room is known, yet altered. A weight seems to press upon the chest. A shape stands near the doorway, not clear enough to name, but too present to ignore. The dreamer tries to call out, but the mouth refuses. Only the heart answers. Modern people might describe such an experience as sleep paralysis, nightmare disorder, fever dream, or anxiety wrapped in the body's own chemistry. The ancient Mesopotamian world had a different language. It could speak of demons, ghosts, witchcraft, divine anger, impurity, or dangerous forces moving near the sleeper. The explanation differed, but the terror itself remains recognizable. That is the unsettling bridge between them and us. A person wakes from a nightmare, sweating in the dark, and for several seconds the world is not trustworthy. The corner of the room may still hold a figure, the chest still feels gripped, the dream's sound still vibrates in the ear. Then slowly, perhaps, the ordinary room returns, perhaps not quickly enough. A quirky detail from Mesopotamian protective traditions is the use of frightening figures against frightening forces. Small images, hybrid beings, and guardian forms could be placed near thresholds, beds, walls, or buried under floors in later Mesopotamian practice. The idea was strangely practical. If danger comes looking for you, perhaps it should meet something uglier at the door. Ancient home security had imagination. The bed itself could become a defended place. A threshold might be ritually guarded. A doorway might be watched by symbols. A prayer might be spoken before sleep. Water, oil, incense, figurines, knots, and spoken formulas could enter the nightly struggle. The sleeper could not fight while asleep, so ritual fought on their behalf. That gives the room a different feeling. You look at the walls and no longer see them as simple mud brick. They are boundaries between inside and outside, safety and exposure, purity and intrusion. The door is not merely a door, it is a weak point. The corner is not merely a corner, it is where darkness gathers. The bed is not merely a place of rest, it is where a person becomes available to help or harm. The ancient mind watched these spaces carefully. Hostile beings in Mesopotamian thought were not always like later storybook monsters. They could be forces of sickness, disorder, grief, or punishment. Some were named, some were vague. Some belonged to known mythological landscapes. Some were connected with the dead, barren places, winds, or the terrifying unknown beyond settled life. A demon did not need drama, it needed access. That access might come through a neglected rite, an offended god, an impurity, an enemy's curse, or simple human vulnerability. The dream became one possible sign that access had been gained. A nightmare could reveal that the sleeper was troubled by more than ordinary fear. It could show the invisible pressure behind bodily distress. Here the warning inside dreams changes tone. It is no longer only a message about the future. It may be evidence of a presence already near. The dream does not say danger will come. It says danger has found the doorway. That is colder. The sleeper wakes and tells someone. Perhaps the voice is embarrassed, because fear after sleep can feel childish in daylight. Yet the household listens. A repeated nightmare, a vision of the dead, a choking sensation, or a dark figure could not be ignored casually. It might require ritual attention before the danger deepened. An expert may be called again. But now the work feels different. Interpretation alone is not enough. Protection is needed. The specialist may identify the kind of disturbance and recommend words, objects, washing, burning, burying, or offerings. Fear becomes procedure. Procedure becomes defense. Scholars still discuss how to understand these demon traditions. Some view them as religious explanations for illness, grief, trauma, and nighttime terror. Others emphasize that ancient people experienced these beings as real actors within their world, not metaphors waiting for modern approval. A careful reading does not flatten the past. It lets ancient fear keep its own shape. You stand inside that shape now. A woman places a small object near a sleeping child. A man repeats words he was told to speak. An elder watches a doorway a little longer than usual. The lamp is not put out immediately. Its flame remains like a small yellow eye against the dark. The room feels watched from both sides. Outside, the city sinks into deeper sleep. The temple walls fade into a dark mass beneath the stars. Canals reflect broken pieces of moonlight. Reeds whisper at their edges. Somewhere in the distance, a jackal cries beyond the cultivated land, where fields give way to rougher country. That cry matters. Settled life in Sumer depended on boundaries. Irrigated field against wild marsh, city wall against open land, temple order against confusion, household purity against pollution, human community against the unknown. Night weakened all those boundaries, and sleep weakened them further. A nightmare was a border alarm. It told the sleeper that something had crossed, or might cross, or was pressing close. The image might be a dead relative, a shadow, a beast, a stranger, a hand, a breath, a voice without a body. Each dream translated danger into something the mind could see, though not necessarily understand. The body remembered. You feel the mat under your back, rough and warm. You feel the air thicken. The smell of oil smoke grows faint. Your eyelids lower. For a moment, every object seems slightly more alive than it should be. The jar waits. The door waits. The corner waits. Sleep approaches again. This is why ancient protection mattered so deeply. To sleep was to surrender control in a world where control was already fragile. The gods might send guidance, but hostile forces might also exploit the open gate. The dreamer lay between warning and attack, between message and confusion, between the help of heaven and the pressure of the dark. No wonder people prayed. No wonder they placed guardians near doors. No wonder the morning mattered so much. When dawn finally came, it did more than bring light. It returned shape to the world. It proved that the sleeper had crossed the dangerous water of night and reached the other side. The dream could then be told, interpreted, feared, or answered. But first, the person had to wake. The lamp flickers. A breath catches. Beyond the wall, unseen life moves in the reeds. Inside the house, a sleeper turns toward darkness, carrying no weapon but the old hope that someone or something is guarding the edge of sleep. The night does not always keep its teeth. Sometimes, after the terror passes, the same darkness that frightens the sleeper becomes a place of repair. A room that held a nightmare can also hold a prayer. A mat that received trembling can receive healing. The ancient world understood that danger and mercy often approach through the same door. You enter a small house before dawn, where the walls are cool and the floor has been swept. The smell of smoke is faint, mixed with damp clay, wool, and water drawn from a jar. Someone has woken uneasy. Someone has seen a dream that clings to the skin like ash. Yet no one panics loudly. The household moves with practiced care. A lamp is lit. A bowl is placed near the bed. A cord is untied. Water is touched. Words are whispered in a tone meant for powers that listen better in quietness. Ancient ritual does not need to shout. It knows the night is close. A mainstream historical fact rests beneath this scene. Mesopotamian healing often combined practical care, prayers, ritual actions, and appeals to divine protection. Texts studied by scholars at major universities show that illness and spiritual disturbance were frequently treated together, not as separate categories. The body, the household, the gods, and unseen forces belonged to one field of concern. So a bad dream did not always mean defeat. It could become the beginning of treatment. The dream revealed a disturbance, and the ritual answered it. The sleeper, who had been helpless in the vision, became active in waking life. They could wash. They could speak. They could offer. They could place a protective object near the bed. They could ask the gods to turn away harm. Action returned dignity. Imagine the dreamer seated while water is poured over the hands. The water is cool enough to startle the skin. It runs into a basin, carrying dust, sweat, and perhaps something less visible. The person breathes slowly. The dream is told again, but now it is told inside a framework of protection. That matters deeply. A frightening dream repeated without ritual may grow larger. A frightening dream spoken within ritual can be contained. The words do not erase the image, but they surround it. They tell the mind that the warning has been heard and that a response has begun. There is wisdom there, even across 4,000 years. Some later Mesopotamian rituals sought to neutralize evil dreams or transform their effects. The details varied, and the oldest layers are not always easy to separate from later traditions. Yet the pattern is clear enough. A dream could be dangerous, but it was not always final. Ritual might redirect it, soften it, or send its harm elsewhere. The warning could be answered. A quirky feature of these protective practices is their use of ordinary materials with extraordinary seriousness. Water, oil, flour, wool, clay, plants, thread, and small figurines could become participants in healing. A modern person might call them simple objects. Ancient ritual looked at them and said, yes, but simple things are everywhere, which makes them useful. The gods apparently did not require luxury packaging. A thread could bind, water could cleanse, oil could soothe, clay could hold the shape of a problem, fire could carry words upward through smoke, a small image could stand in for a danger, a patient, or a protective presence. Each object became part of a language spoken through touch. You feel the texture of it. The cord is rough against the fingers. The oil shines in the lamp flame. The clay figure is cool and slightly damp. The water smells faintly of the jar that held it. The spoken words move through the room like breath made purposeful. Healing here is not separate from atmosphere. The room becomes organized against chaos. The bed is no longer just the place where fear entered. It becomes the center of a small protective universe. The doorway is watched. The corners are noticed. The body is addressed. The dream is named. The unseen is not denied, but it is not allowed to rule freely. That is the quiet courage of ritual. You can imagine a mother performing a simple protective act for a child who cried out in sleep. Perhaps she does not understand the full scholarly system of omens. Perhaps she cannot read a single sign on a tablet. Yet she knows what fear sounds like when it wakes a child. She knows water, warmth, touch, and words. She knows that the night must be answered. Not all knowledge is written. Some of it lives in hands. A priest or healer may also be involved, especially if the dream repeats or if illness follows. The expert may prescribe a prayer, an offering, a washing, or a ritual against the bad dream's effects. This specialist does not treat the dream as entertainment. He treats it as evidence, symptom, warning, and possible doorway. Modern scholars continue to debate how to classify such healing. Some describe it as religious medicine. Some call it ritual therapy. Others prefer to understand it within its own ancient logic, where divine displeasure, demonic pressure, bodily illness, and emotional fear could overlap. The debate remains open because the ancient categories do not fit neatly inside modern boxes. The past resists our shelves. Still, the human pattern is clear. A person suffers in sleep. A community responds. The nightmare is drawn out of isolation and placed into shared action. That alone changes the burden. Fear becomes less lonely when someone lights a lamp beside you. You stand beside the dreamer as dawn slowly stains the walls. A small offering may be prepared. Bread, oil, incense, or drink may be placed before a god's image. The gesture is humble, almost domestic. There is no grand drama here. Only the patient work of restoring balance after darkness has disturbed it. Balance was everything. The ancient city depended on balance between river and field, temple and household, labour and offering, human need and divine order. A healing ritual after a bad dream reflected the same larger pattern. Something had tilted. Something must be steadied. The dream revealed the tilt. The ritual tried to set it right. Perhaps the dreamer receives a calmer sign later. Perhaps sleep becomes easier. Perhaps illness passes, and everyone remembers the ritual with gratitude. Perhaps nothing changes, and more help is sought. Ancient people, like modern people, lived with mixed results and explained them as best they could. That honesty matters. Ritual did not guarantee comfort, but it gave fear a path. It made suffering legible. It placed the sleeper within a network of gods, family, experts, objects, and words. It said that the nightmare was not the whole story. The body could be protected. The house could be guarded. The dream could be turned. You hear sandals outside now, soft against packed earth. The city begins to stir. A vendor clears his throat. A bird calls from a roof edge. Farther away, the river carries morning light between reeds. The nightmare loses a little of its strength in that growing brightness, yet the protection remains. A charm near the doorway, a prayer in memory, a bowl emptied after use, the smell of smoke in the rafters, a child sleeping more peacefully, a dreamer touching the place on the chest where fear had pressed, finding only skin. This is where the original purpose of dreams becomes gentler. A dream may warn, yes, it may reveal danger. It may show that something unseen has entered the boundaries of a life. But by revealing danger, it also makes response possible. It opens the way for healing before harm becomes complete. The warning is not always punishment. Sometimes it is mercy wearing a frightening face. The lamp burns lower as daylight strengthens. The household returns to its ordinary work, but not exactly unchanged. The night has been faced. The dream has been answered. The room has been reclaimed from whatever passed through it. And in the soft light of morning, the sleeper understands something ancient and tender. To dream is to be vulnerable, but it is also to be reachable. The same open gate that admits fear may also admit protection. The same darkness that hides danger may carry the first sign of cure. Sleep takes, sleep gives. And somewhere between the two, humanity learns to pray. By midday, the city has become bright and loud again, but the meaning of dreams has sunk deeper. It no longer belongs only to fear, healing, kingship, or priestly skill. It reaches toward a larger question, one that waits beneath every wall and canal. Why would human beings receive warnings at all? You walk beneath a hard white sky, while heat rises from the packed earth. The streets smell of dust, fish, warm brick and trampled reeds. Workers carry baskets against their hips. Scribes bend over tablets. Children chase each other through light and shadow. Goats investigate everything with the moral seriousness of tiny judges. The city is alive with labour. That matters, because in ancient Mesopotamian myth, human beings were often imagined in relation to divine work. Later Akkadian texts, preserving older religious ideas in altered form, describe humanity as created to relieve the gods of toil and sustain them through offerings. Scholars at universities such as Oxford, Yale, and Chicago have studied these traditions as windows into how Mesopotamians understood human purpose. People were not placed at the centre as masters. They were placed within an order as servants. This idea changes the dream. If humanity exists to serve divine order, then warning dreams may not be private gifts alone. They may be corrections sent to keep the human part of the system functioning. A person warned in sleep is not simply protected for personal comfort. The household, the field, the temple, and the god's portion may also be protected through that warning. A dream guards more than one life. You pass a canal where men clear silt from the waterway. Their shoulders shine with sweat. Their feet sink slightly into the mud. Without that work, fields dry, barley fails, animals weaken, and storehouses empty. Order is not abstract here. It is physical. It is heavy. It leaves marks on the hands. The same is true of sacred order. Offerings must arrive. Rituals must be performed. Boundaries must be respected. The gods must not be neglected. A dream that warns of impurity, danger, anger, or imbalance might serve the whole chain of existence. It tells the dreamer that something in the order needs attention. That is a serious responsibility. It is also a strangely intimate one. The gods could command kings, priests, and cities, yet dreams allowed messages to enter ordinary bodies. A worker, a mother, a herdsman, or a young apprentice could become the place where warning appeared. The sleeper might be poor, tired, and unimportant in public life, but at night the hidden order could still reach him. Sleep levels people quietly. The king and labourer both lie down. The priest and potter both close their eyes. The rich man and servant both drift beyond speech. A dream does not need a decorated doorway. It enters through breath, exhaustion, fear, memory, and the unguarded mind. Perhaps that is why dreams felt sacred. They came to humans where humans were most honest. Not honest in words, because sleeping people have no speeches prepared. Honest in dependence. The body admits what daylight tries to hide. It must rest. It must surrender. It cannot protect itself forever. A quirky piece of Mesopotamian human purpose hides in the background of the old myths. Human beings, in some traditions, were created because divine labour had become inconvenient. It is not exactly a flattering origin story. Imagine discovering that your species begins as a workforce solution. Ancient theology could be majestic, but it could also sound suspiciously like management outsourcing. Still, there is dignity inside the discomfort. If humans serve order, then their actions matter. Their offerings matter. Their maintenance of fields and temples matters. Their obedience, caution, and rituals matter. A dream warning them is not meaningless. It suggests that even fragile people participate in the balance of the world. You feel that balance in the city's design. Water runs through channels. Grain moves to storage. Clay tablets record obligations. Temples receive offerings. Families prepare food. The dead are remembered. The living bargain. Worry, work, and sleep. Every part depends on another, and every failure can spread. A neglected canal becomes hunger. A neglected god becomes danger. A neglected dream becomes risk. The dreamer's role in creation, then, is not passive. He or she receives, interprets, responds, and helps restore order. The dream may arrive from outside the self, but its consequence depends on human action. Warning without response is only a shadow on the wall. This is where the ancient view becomes quietly profound. Humans are limited but not useless. They cannot see the whole future, but they may receive hints. They cannot command the gods, but they may answer signs. They cannot stop death or disaster completely, but they may delay, soften, or prepare for harm. The dream gives the small creature a task. Modern scholars debate how strongly creation myths should shape our reading of dream texts. Some emphasize that myths about human service reveal broad religious assumptions shared across Mesopotamian culture. Others caution that ritual, omen, and literary traditions developed in different contexts and should not be forced into one simple system. The evidence invites slow thinking, because ancient belief was not a single straight road. It was a city of roads, yet the connection feels persuasive in narrative terms. A human made for divine service would need guidance. A servant who does not understand the master's will is dangerous. A city that fails to read signs may drift toward disorder. A dream becomes one way the unseen world keeps the visible world aligned. Not perfectly aligned, never perfectly. The ancient world was too full of failure for that. Floods came, children died, kings lost wars, temples burned, dreams were misread, offerings were made too late, people lied, forgot, panicked, and hoped for more mercy than they probably deserved. Very human behaviour, really. Clay tablets may be ancient, but excuses are timeless. Still, the system endured because it offered meaning within fragility. A dream could tell a person that suffering was not random, or at least not entirely unreadable. It could suggest that the gods had not abandoned the world to silence. Even a frightening dream might prove that someone beyond the human realm was still speaking. That thought comforts and unsettles at once. If the gods speak, they may warn. If they warn, they may judge. If they judge, then sleep is no escape from responsibility. You step into a small courtyard where shade gathers beside a wall. A woman sorts grain with steady hands. An old man repairs a tool. A child sleeps in the corner, mouth slightly open, one hand curled near the cheek. The scene is ordinary, almost tender. Yet in the ancient imagination, even this child belongs to a cosmic arrangement older than a memory. Perhaps the child dreams. Perhaps the dream is nonsense made of milk, warmth, and shadows. Perhaps it is something more. No one can know until the child wakes, cries, laughs, or speaks. That uncertainty lies at the heart of the Sumerian dream world. Human beings may be small, but their sleep opens into vastness. The purpose of dreams, then, may be bound to the purpose of humanity. To serve, yes, but also to listen. To labour, yes, but also to notice. To live inside order, and to receive warnings when that order trembles. The sun moves slowly across the courtyard. The shadows shift. Grain falls through fingers with a dry whisper. Somewhere in the distance, a temple official calls for workers, and the day continues its ancient demands. Yet beneath the noise of labour, another truth remains. Humanity was not imagined as fully awake on its own. It needed signs from sky, river, animal, God, illness, and sleep. It needed reminders that the visible world was only one layer of being. Dreams entered through vulnerability to return human beings to attention, and perhaps that is their deepest role. They remind the servant that the house is larger than the room he sees. They remind the builder that the city rests on invisible foundations. They remind the sleeper that even when the eyes close, the world has not stopped asking for a response. The afternoon light begins to soften, and the city seems to fold into an older shape. The walls, canals, courtyards, and temple steps no longer feel like separate things. They begin to resemble parts of one immense design, built slowly by hands that believed the world could be read. You walk along a canal where the water carries bits of straw and reflected sky. The mud at the edge is cracked in some places, slick in others. Reeds tremble in the faint wind. A heron stands with impossible patience, staring into the shallows like a scholar waiting for a footnote to move. The city lives inside patterns. Day follows night. Flood follows season. Seed follows plough. Offering follows harvest. Illness follows impurity. Or so someone may fear. Victory follows favour. At least when kings explain victory later, dreams follow sleep, and sleep follows the surrender of the body. Nothing stands alone for long. This is one of the great historical realities of Mesopotamian thought. Ancient scholars built vast systems of omens from dreams, stars, animal behaviour, malformed births, weather, and ritual signs. Research from leading centres such as Yale, Chicago, Oxford, and the University of Pennsylvania has shown how deeply scribble learning organised these patterns. The world was treated as a text with many surfaces. Clay was only one surface. The sky was another. So was the liver of a sacrificed animal. So was the birth of an unusual creature. So was a storm arriving at a strange time. So was a dream of a river, a gate, or a dead man standing in clean clothing. Each sign belonged to a larger habit of attention, a habit older than any single tablet. You sense the hidden system gathering around you. It is not a machine in the modern sense. It does not click forward with perfect gears. It is more like an old net cast across reality. Some knots are tight, some are frayed, some catch real fish, some catch shadows. But the net itself tells you something important about the people who made it. They believed meaning could be sought. They believed the future left traces before arriving. That belief can sound strange, until you remember how modern people behave. They read markets, symptoms, weather models, body language, election polls, search trends, and the silence after a message is sent. We still study signs. We just prefer ours with charts and passwords. Ancient Mesopotamians studied signs with clay and ritual. A dream was one thread in this larger fabric. It could not be understood properly if torn away from the rest. A bad dream after an eclipse might feel different from a bad dream during household illness. A dream before a journey might carry another weight. A dream received by a king might be read within political destiny. The sign was shaped by its place in the system. Context gave the image power. You stand in a scribal room where tablets rest like sleeping animals. Some contain lists, some preserve hymns, some record offerings, some hold omens. The shelves and baskets do not simply store information. They preserve a worldview in which knowledge means classification, and classification means a little protection against chaos. The scribe copies a line. His stylus moves carefully. He may not know why an old formula says one image leads to one result. He preserves it because it belongs to tradition. He adds his own skill to a chain of memory. The tablet he copies may itself come from an older tablet, and that older tablet from a still older school. Knowledge moves forward by repetition. Repetition is not dull here. It is survival. A quirky feature of Mesopotamian scholarship is its love of lists. The ancient scribal mind listed gods, cities, stones, plants, animals, professions, words, and signs with almost heroic determination. Somewhere in that impulse is both genius and comedy. Faced with the mysteries of existence, the Mesopotamian scholar seems to say, "Very well, let us make a list." Honestly, it is admirable. A list turns fear into rules. A row turns panic into something the eye can follow. A dream of a snake, a dream of a river, a dream of a broken tool, a dream of receiving bread, all can be placed within a learned structure. The result may still frighten the dreamer, but it no longer floats without boundary. This is how a system becomes a shelter, yet every shelter casts a shadow. Once the world is read as signs, the mind may never fully rest. The sky is not simply beautiful, it may be warning. The animal is not simply strange, it may be omen. The dream is not simply a dream. It may be instruction, punishment, protection, or deception. Meaning multiplies until silence becomes rare. That is why dreams belong so naturally within this older pattern. Sleep itself is a mystery that arrives every night. A person vanishes inward, sees impossible scenes, speaks with the dead, hears gods, suffers terror, receives comfort, and returns by morning. No ancient scholar needed to invent the strangeness of dreams. They only needed to organize it. The dream was already asking questions. Scholars still debate how unified these omen systems were in practice. Some see an impressive intellectual framework maintained by trained scribes across many centuries. Others emphasize local variation, changing traditions, and the difference between elite scholarly texts and everyday belief. The truth may lie in the living tension between archive and street. A tablet preserves order. A frightened household improvises. Both belong to history. The written system may give a structure, but ordinary people gave it breath. A mother calming a child after a nightmare might not consult a full omen series. A merchant troubled before a journey might ask a temple specialist. A king might summon experts with tablets and titles. The same belief in hidden signs could move through different lives at different depths. You feel the city as a layered map. At the top, the sky moves with stars and planets. At the centre, temples hold statues, offerings, songs, and official rituals. In the streets, animals stumble, traders argue, and dust rises under feet. Beneath the houses, the dead remain near memory inside the sleeping body, images appear. All layers speak in fragments. The task is not simply to hear them. The task is to connect them without being consumed by them. That is the delicate genius of ancient divination. It admits that the world is dangerous and meaningful, but then tries to make danger negotiable through knowledge. The dreamer becomes one small point in a vast pattern. His dream may belong to his own fear, but it may also belong to weather, gods, ancestors, sickness, ritual timing, or the fate of a household. The dream is personal, yet never merely personal. It is a little door opening into a system too large to see all at once. Perhaps that is why it feels older than memory. A system like this does not appear in one clean moment. It grows over generations. A warning remembered by one family becomes a saying. A priestly interpretation becomes a formula becomes a tablet becomes a lesson becomes tradition. Tradition becomes the quiet voice people hear when they wake afraid. The sun lowers toward the western haze, the canal darkens, the heron finally moves, lifting one thin leg with ceremonial seriousness. In the distance, temple walls glow briefly, then begin to fade into evening colour. The city prepares for night again. But now night is not only darkness, it is part of the system. It is the time when another surface of the world becomes readable. The day offers signs in dust, animals, weather, and speech. The night offers signs in dream, shadow, breath, and memory. Together they form the hidden timeline of human attention. Long before modern science separated mind from omen and body from spirit, these ancient people built a way to live with uncertainty. It was imperfect. It was sometimes frightening. It could be used for power. Yet it also reveals a profound human need. The need to believe that warning is possible. The need to believe that danger may speak before it strikes. The need to believe that the sleeping mind is not abandoned in the dark, but woven into the same great fabric as river, star, temple, and clay. The evening wind moves softly through the reeds. Somewhere, a scribe covers a tablet. Somewhere, a family prepares a lamp. Somewhere, a sleeper will soon close tired eyes, unaware that the older system is waiting patiently to begin its work again. The evening gathers, and uncertainty becomes almost visible. It lies over the city like a thin layer of dust on clay. Every object remains itself, yet every object seems capable of becoming evidence. A door is a door, but perhaps also a warning. A dream is a dream, but perhaps also a message. You stand where scholars still stand, at the edge of fragments. The ancient city around you is vivid in imagination, but incomplete in proof. The tablets survive unevenly. Some are broken, some come from later periods. Some preserve traditions that may reach backward into older Sumerian ideas, while also carrying the language and concerns of later scribes. History does not hand you a whole lamp. It gives you a shard, still smelling faintly of smoke. That shard matters. A mainstream fact anchors the uncertainty. Modern Assyriology, shaped by research at institutions such as the University of Pennsylvania, Yale, Chicago, and Oxford, studies Sumerian and Akkadian text through language, archaeology, and comparison. These scholars have shown that dreams held religious, political, ritual, and literary importance across Mesopotamian culture. Yet the exact meanings of individual dream traditions remain debated. The debate is not failure. It is how careful knowledge breathes. One scholar may look at a dream account and see religion. A god appears, speaks, commands, warns, and the human obeys. The scene belongs to a sacred universe where divine powers communicate through sleep. In that reading, the dream is not merely about the dreamer's mind. It is about contact with a living order beyond human sight. Another scholar may see politics. A ruler describes a dream because divine approval strengthens authority. A temple restoration becomes more persuasive when a god requested it. A campaign feels more legitimate when heaven seems to have nodded politely. Ancient power, like modern power, understood the usefulness of a well-timed endorsement. The gods had excellent branding. A third scholar may see psychology, though carefully. Dreams express anxiety, grief, memory, illness, desire, and social pressure. A bad dream before travel may reflect fear of the road. A dead relative may express mourning. A divine command may organize guilt into action. This approach does not mock ancient belief. It asks what the dreaming mind does under strain. All three views can illuminate something. None owns the whole night. You walk into a scribal school, imagined but grounded in excavated reality. The room smells of damp clay, dust, sweat, and reed. Students repeat signs aloud. A teacher corrects mistakes with the timeless patience of someone losing patience. Tablets dry near the wall, each one holding words that once required muscle, memory, and discipline. Here, dreams become texts. That is one reason scholars argue. A dream preserved in writing is already changed. It has passed through speech, memory, selection, language, scribal training, and sometimes royal ideology. What began as a sleeping image may become a polished narrative. What began as fear may become doctrine. What began as doctrine may pretend to be fear. The tablet is both window and wall. A quirky problem in studying ancient dreams is that nobody can interview the dreamer. This is deeply inconvenient, and history refuses to apologize. The sleeper is gone. The interpreter is gone. The exact tone of voice is gone. The hesitation, embarrassment, tears, or nervous laughter are gone. Scholars inherit the hardened signs, not the trembling person, so they proceed with care. They ask what genre the text belongs to. Is it a myth, hymn, omen list, ritual instruction, royal inscription, letter, or literary story? They ask who had power to write it. They ask who benefited from its message. They ask whether the language is Sumerian, Akkadian, bilingual, archaizing, copied, or adapted. Each question brushes dust from one corner. Still, the mystery remains. Were dreams mainly understood as divine messages? Or did people recognize ordinary dreams as separate from sacred ones? Did common households consult interpreters often? Or mostly in serious distress? Did priests control dream meaning? Or did families preserve local habits? Did warning dreams comfort people? Or trap them in fear of signs? The answers are probably uneven. Ancient life rarely moves in one neat line. A king may use a dream for public authority. A priest may interpret a dream through ritual learning. A mother may soothe a child with inherited words. A soldier may ignore a troubling vision because orders are orders. A farmer may remember a dream only when the canal bank breaks. Human variety is ancient too. You feel that variety in the lanes. One person may believe fully. Another may believe only when frightened. Another may visit the temple because his wife insists. Another may privately suspect the dream came from indigestion, then make the offering anyway because why insult the universe unnecessarily? That small hesitation feels real. Scholars often work hardest where evidence is thinnest. They compare texts, seals, excavated rooms, ritual objects, divine names, later traditions, and patterns of practice. They reconstruct cautiously, knowing that confidence can become fantasy if it walks too quickly. The ancient world rewards patience. It punishes neat answers. This is the open, scholarly debate at the heart of the subject. Were Mesopotamian dream texts primarily records of belief, tools of social control, reflections of emotional life, or literary devices shaped for memory and persuasion? The strongest answer may be that they were all of these, depending on setting, speaker, and purpose. A dream can do several jobs. It can frighten the dreamer. It can authorize the king. It can enrich the temple. It can heal the household. It can entertain a scribe. It can preserve a god's voice in clay. This complexity does not weaken the ancient dream world. It makes it more human. People rarely believe for only one reason. They believe because fear hurts, because tradition surrounds them, because authority teaches them, because rituals comfort them, because strange experiences demand explanation, and because the night sometimes feels too purposeful to ignore. You step outside again as darkness thickens. The first stars appear above the flat roofs. A breeze carries the smell of water and smoke. The city becomes less certain in outline. Edges soften, doorways darken, voices lower. This is the scholar's world too. Not a world of complete darkness, but of partial light. enough to see forms, not enough to end mystery. The best historical work does not strip wonder away, it steadies it. It says, this tablet survives, this context is known, this interpretation is possible, and this remains beyond reach. That honesty has its own beauty. It lets the ancient dream remain ancient. Not a modern therapy session in a mud brick costume. Not a simple superstition. Not a secret code that solves everything. Instead, it becomes a layered human act, shaped by gods, fear, scribes, temples, politics, memory, and the vulnerable body at rest. The dream belongs to the past, but not only there. You know the feeling. A strange image wakes you before dawn. You lie still, listening to your room return. For a moment, you cannot tell whether your mind produced the dream, received it, or merely opened a door by accident. Modern language arrives later. At first, there is only the old astonishment. The Sumerians lived close to that astonishment. They gave it clay, ritual, gods, lists, and interpretation. Scholars now give it grammar, excavation reports, museum catalogues, and careful disagreement. Between those two worlds, the dream remains suspended, neither fully explained nor fully lost. The night settles over the city. Somewhere, a tablet waits under soil. Somewhere, a line of signs is still unread. Somewhere, an ancient sleeper wakes inside a broken text, carrying a vision no one can completely restore. And perhaps that is fitting. A dream that once belonged to darkness should not surrender all its darkness too easily. The last light leaves the city slowly, as if reluctant to surrender the roofs, canals, courtyards, and temple steps. The western sky fades from bronze into violet, then into a blue so deep it seems older than language. The reeds along the water become black lines. The river carries the first stars in broken pieces. You stand beside cooling clay. A tablet rests near a low wall, no longer soft, no longer easily changed. Someone has pressed signs into it with care, perhaps about grain, perhaps about offerings, perhaps about a dream that disturbed a sleeper before dawn. The hand that made it is gone. The breath that spoke the dream is gone. Yet the clay remains, stubborn as memory. This is the historical fact that keeps returning with quiet force. Thousands of Mesopotamian tablets survive in museums and university collections, preserving administrative records, hymns, myths, rituals, omens, and fragments of daily life. Scholars at Pennsylvania, Yale, Chicago, Oxford, and other research centers continue to study these texts, not as dead curiosities, but as evidence of how ancient peoples searched for order. Their world did not vanish completely. It hardened in clay. Still, clay does not explain everything. It preserves marks, not the heartbeat behind them. It gives signs, not the exact fear in a dark room. It lets you glimpse a system where dreams mattered, but it cannot place you fully inside one sleeper's chest as the vision arrived. That final distance remains. Perhaps it should. The warning hidden inside ancient dreams is not only that danger may come, it is not only that gods may speak, or demons may approach, or kings may tremble, or priests may gain power through interpretation. Those are parts of the story, but not the whole shape of it. The deeper warning is quieter. Human beings do not see enough. You can build cities, count grain, raise temples, command workers, and carve the names of kings into stone. You can make lists of signs and teach apprentices how to read them. You can watch rivers, stars, animals, doors, storms, births, and the shadows inside sleep. Still, the world remains larger than the human mind. That is the warning. It comes gently, but it does not flatter. The dream reminds the sleeper that daylight confidence is temporary. In the sun, people pretend the world is manageable. They measure fields, weigh silver, argue over boundaries, and speak as if tomorrow has already agreed to arrive politely. Then night comes. The body lies down. The clever mouth closes. The mind opens into images it did not choose. A river rises. A door opens. A dead voice speaks. The ancient dream system turned those images into messages, warnings, and rituals. It gave fear a grammar. It told people that the hidden world might send notice before disaster entered fully. That belief could comfort. It could also burden. If dreams warn, then sleep is not empty. If sleep is not empty, then no one is entirely alone in darkness. For the people of Sumer and later Mesopotamia, this was not merely poetic. It belonged to a lived world of temples, households, canals, offerings, illness, ancestors, and divine authority. A dream could change a morning could change a journey could change a life. Small warnings might move through the world with enormous patience. You walk through the city one final time. The streets have cooled. The smell of baked brick lingers faintly in the air. Smoke curls from a roof opening and dissolves into the dark. A child sleeps against a mother's side. A scribe wraps a tablet and sets it away. A priest closes a chamber. A dog lies near a doorway, twitching in its own private dream. Even animals cross that border. A quirky old thought rises there. If a dog dreams, does it chase a real hare, a remembered hare, or some divine administrative hare from the great unseen kennel of the gods? Ancient scholars did not leave us that particular tablet, which is honestly a loss for humanity. Yet the little sleeping dog reminds you that dreaming is older than cities, older than kings, older than writing. The Sumerians did not invent dreams. They inherited them. What they did was place dreams inside civilization. They gave them temples, interpreters, tablets, rituals, warnings, and social weight. They made private night part of public order. They treated the sleeping mind as another field where meaning might grow, though not always safely. That is why the subject still feels alive. Modern scholars debate the meaning of these traditions with care. Some emphasize religion, seeing dreams as channels of divine instruction. Some emphasize society, seeing interpretation as a way to organize fear and authority. Some emphasize literature, where dreams shape stories, kingship, and memory. Others study the mind itself, asking how ancient people understood experiences that modern science explains differently. The debate remains open. No single answer has the patience of the ancient night. Perhaps the dream was a message. Perhaps it was a memory rearranged by fear. Perhaps it was a social event waiting for an interpreter. Perhaps it was all of these at once, because human beings have always lived in overlapping worlds. The body sleeps. The mind sees. The culture explains. The household responds. The dream does not belong to one category. It moves too softly for that. You pause near the temple platform, where the upper bricks catch the last trace of starlight. The structure seems massive, yet fragile, made of mud lifted toward heaven. It is a perfect image of humanity in Sumer. Earth reaching upward, dust arranged into longing, labour shaped into sacred architecture. Below it, someone sleeps. Maybe the sleeper dreams of water, maybe of a god standing at a gate, maybe of bread, a broken bowl, a lost garment, a shining room, or a dead relative with calm eyes. Maybe the dream means nothing. Maybe it means everything. No one can tell until morning, and even morning may not be enough. That uncertainty is the final warning. Not terror, not doom, not theatrical thunder over ancient ruins. Just uncertainty, breathing quietly beside the bed. The old texts suggest that dreams were meaningful because the world itself was meaningful. But they also reveal how hard meaning can be to hold. A sign may guide or mislead. A warning may save or burden. An interpretation may heal or control. The hidden message is never simple, and perhaps that is why it lasts. You look again at the tablet. Its surface is uneven. Some signs are clear, others are chipped, blurred, or broken. It resembles the history of dreams itself. Enough remains to draw you close. Enough is missing to keep you humble. The night deepens over the land between the rivers. Stars gather over the temple. The canals darken. The houses settle into sleep. Somewhere, a person wakes suddenly, unsure whether the voice they heard belonged to memory, God, fear, or the deep secret machinery of the mind. They listen. The room is still, and perhaps, in that stillness, the ancient warning remains exactly where it has always been. Not written only in clay, not held only in temples, not locked inside museums or scholarly debates. It waits wherever a human being closes their eyes and enters the country beyond waking. The dream rises, the world leans close, and perhaps the story is not yet complete. Now the city grows softer. The sharp edges of brick and doorway fade into a single dark outline, and the river continues its slow movement under the stars. You do not need to solve the dream tonight. You do not need to decide whether it was warning, memory, symbol, or message. The ancient people did not always know either. They listened, they wondered, they answered as gently as they could. Let the clay cool in your imagination. Let the reeds bend in the night wind. Let the last lamp lower its flame until the room becomes calm and safe. Whatever the old tablets still withhold, they leave one quiet gift behind. They remind you that mystery can be carried slowly, without fear, without haste, without needing to master it. Your breathing settles. The city recedes. The temple becomes only a dark shape beneath the patient sky. A sleeper turns on a woven mat, and the world does not break. The river moves. The stars remain. The dream fades into a softer place, where questions no longer ask to be answered. And as the night folds itself around the ancient land, you may rest beside it. Nothing is demanded now. Nothing needs to be interpreted. The warning has become a whisper. The whisper has become silence. Good night.